1, 2, 3. Excellent.
When do we have a long video? Oh, they gave us that for the. That's fine. Or the tripping hazard. Well, that was kind of it. Oh, they're fine there. Oh, yeah. We're all in. When do I leave for it? When do I leave for it? Gotcha. Tight window. It's going to be the one known for the most heckling, other than Adam Rosenhart, who doesn't seem to be here. So, well,
That's right. Well, I don't know. I think maybe we should take the filter.
I'm sitting on the far edge.
you got your ass.
Pretend I'm shaking your head. Like,
Bring it.
I guess so.
Nothing to say one way or the other. It's all good. Apparently we're front row cleaners today. I'm not sure what's going on here.
That's totally cool.
Hecklers.
Same way. Totally the same. That's all right. It's not me that's going to get the most
No, that's
heckling. They always have now. Yeah. Dark now. We went on that street car. And there, the night before he got this problem. And he was so adamant.
Why didn't you? Where's your little one? Oh, now you have day-home situation. Nice. Because, I'm not sure how many more times I can walk those stairs with her. I'm still trying. I was like,
As big as she is, she made you.
no, she did not. It was just like, it's just like, you get out of that group. I remember carrying my babies everywhere. And I was happy to do it because it's better than hauling them out. But still, it was like, oh my gosh. I went to the chiropractor and my spine was like this after having babies from carrying on the same side. It's ridiculous.
I calluses on one end.
Oh, what's that? I carry my baby.
I swear.
If you were a guy,
Hello. Ooh, this is hot. That's awesome. This is great. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. I tend to project, so you might want to drop me down a little. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to Social Media Breakfast number 21. Everyone, yeah, let's hear a cheer for Social Media Breakfast 21. Welcome to all of you here. Welcome to all of you watching at home and around the world. Everyone turn and wave at the mic because you're waving to the world as we are being live streamed, thanks to Evan standing there in the back. That everyone turn around and wave. I wasn't talking to the people on the live stream. I made everyone here turn and wave to the microphone. There we go. Welcome to Social Media Breakfast. Who has been here before? Who has not been here before? Excellent. Who doesn't speak English? All right, just checking my margin of error. Social Media Breakfast, as those of you who have been here know, is a way to connect various individuals in the social media community and people who have never been in the social media community and people who are experts in the social media community to talk about all things, surprisingly, social media. Who here is on Twitter? Who here isn't on Twitter? Hey, no, excellent, awesome, even our panelists. So like I said, this is for all levels, all skills. This is just about interest in social media. The official wording is SMBYEG is a place for social media aficionados and beginners to discuss effective practices, past experiences, and new techniques. So that is what we will be doing today. And every time that we get together for this, which is the last Friday of the month, every month, except December, because surprisingly some people have other plans. My name is Randy Brzozowski. I will be your host for the day. You may find me online at Rand Wolven. You may find me at Group of Rogues. You may find me in other places that I'm not proud of. Our panel here today, we're going to talk about them in a second, but not yet. Everybody look at the lovely panel who's sitting here. Hello, lovely panel. Startup Edmonton is brought to you in a number of different ways. We have various levels of sponsorship, and that is why you get this great experience with these great panelists, great food, great coffee, and a great networking experience with everybody around you here. E.T. Adnams, that's Evan, who you see at the back, who is making this stream live throughout the world. He's bringing us some technical abilities, and a logo that doesn't appear there is Genome Alberta, that is also a sponsor of our event. Moving along, we have a sponsor for our breakfast part itself. That sponsor is Focus Communications. They are the ones who are responsible for feeding your bellies. So everyone give a round of applause for Focus Communications. And in fact, I believe both Dean and Sue are here today. And since they put food in your bellies, they also get to put words in your ears. So here is your 3 minutes of fame, if either or both of you would like to come up and talk about pretty much anything you want. Gratuitous plugs for your company are welcome here. Ladies and gentlemen, a round of applause for the inimitable Dean Human.
Why, thank you. Imagine my surprise that I'm up here since I apparently have been duped this morning. Thank you. Partner. We are Focus Communications, public relations, marketing firm here, 10 employees. We're just proud to be a part of this community. We're proud to be part of the social media community, and certainly a part of Edmonton. We think these things are fantastic. It's why we want to get involved. It's our way of helping develop. We're celebrating 10 years in our business this November, and we think that other people who are going through it need to gather, need to meet up with each other, and need to have great experiences together. So we're glad that you get together every month. We know that that you guys help each other out, and if we could at least fill your bellies and give you some coffee this morning, then that's the least we could do. And we hope you'll learn something wonderful today. Thank you.
Brilliant. Thank you very much. So, I bet you want to know, I bet you really want to know, who puts this event on? Yes? Who are the people behind the masks? Who's the people behind the curtain? Well, these are the people behind the curtain. Stephen Hodges, Jackie Fraser. Stephen isn't here. Jackie Fraser is right there. She is waving. She's very important. Morgan. Where is Morgan? She's saying, look, everybody's basically over there. There's Morgan. And there is Marlis. These are your committee that bring you the social media breakfast every morning that we do it. And I believe Morgan will have something very important to say to you at the end. So once we are done the panel discussion, don't go away, because there's another very big social media event happening this month. Next month. Month and a week, month and a couple days. November 1st, anyway, in Red Deer, that she might have some discounts for, so she will talk about that. We appreciate our sponsors. Our sponsors allow us to put food in your bellies, and we always need sponsors. So if you would like to sponsor Social Media Breakfast, and if you would like your opportunity to stand up here and be eloquent like Dean was, then all you need to do is get a hold of Morgan, because she, over there, who is waving now, wave again. And that is exactly how you get a hold of her at Morgs Live. She is the one that will connect you and allow you your opportunity to speak for fame and fortune. Also, we also need speakers as time goes on. And if you would like to speak at one of these events and share your knowledge, if you have a theme, an idea, even if you just have requests for things you'd really like to see at Social Media Breakfast, then you get a hold of Jackie as she coordinates all of our speakers. And that's how you get a hold of Jackie, either at Savage Tyner or just at the SMBYEG account. So let's just do a quick little roll call, a digital roll call. If you were here and you were talking about SMBYEG, please use the SMBYEG hashtag. And just to test that out, and so anyone who's here can track the other people who are here, just hashtag SMBYEG and say hi, howdy, present, whatever you say to let yourself know or let other people know that you're here. And if you don't have a phone, that's fine. Those of you who are up here, we'll get to you later. Those are the slowest to tweet on? The rotary dial phones. Okay. So, and to put in your calendars right now, the next Social Media Breakfast will be the next final Friday of the month. The next final Friday of a month is October 26th. It will again be here. The event, the speaker is a surprise, mostly because no one's told me who it is. But keep following the SMBYEG account and the SMBYEG hashtag, and you will discover who that is in plenty of time for the event. And as you've noticed, our events tend to sell out quickly, but they also, when possible, we release some more tickets. So when you start seeing the SMBYEG hashtag come up, get in there quickly. And if you go there and it's sold out, don't be alarmed. Just keep checking, and we usually release some more tickets. So, one of the SMBYEG idea is not just new and local to us. It is actually international, I believe. It started in the States and is extended all over Canada, all over the States. Calgary is sort of our sister organization. They're doing one. This is the team at SMBYEG Calgary. They do great stuff. They are great Twitter people to follow. They do it on different days. So you could actually do ours and then go flying down and do theirs if you can't get enough social media. And this is the team that puts together theirs. Also great people to follow. They're the third Friday. There we go. Usually the third Friday. And they're still moving from venue to venue, aren't they? So we like isolating ourselves in one place that's really nice because it's hard for us to make friends. So now that we've made friends, we don't want to go anywhere. They're obviously more civil, so they move around a lot. Either that or they don't make friends as well, so they move around a lot. Either way. So here we are. These are the two accounts to follow. SMBYEG is us. SMBYYC is Calgary. Pretty simple. But we want to move on to the important people that you see standing to my left, your right, actually sitting, but they're sitting on solid chairs, so they look like they're standing. Geek chic has become all the rage. There was a time, I know when I was in high school, being a geek was not very good for your career or your ability to avoid bodily assault. However, that has changed, and in fact, full frontal nerdity, as we hashtag it here, has become quite popular and has gotten a lot of traction all over the Western world, all over the world, I would say. We have scoured the city to find the best in geek chic, and we have for you our panel, who is going to discuss how the movement of full frontal nerdity and geek chic has expounded over the last number of years and how things have changed, and more importantly, how that has integrated with, surprisingly, social media. So, from left to right, we have Tammy Lee. Tammy is a high-end web developer. What did you say? You said senior web developer. So she's not high-end, maybe high maintenance. She's senior, and so, but she does have a high end. That was not me that said that. And she works at TopDraw and does a whole bunch of other stuff too. Next to her is Jay Bardilla. I said the last name right. Jay runs Happy Harbor Comics and has kept that little business that could running for 14 years now. Excellent. Moving along, we have Shane, who has no Twitter handle, gasp. Shane is a co-organizer of the Edmonton Expo, which is our big comic book convention and all things comic book and pop culture, etc. And down at the end, we have Jay Runham, co-host of the J&J podcast about movies, entertainment, and comics and all sorts of things. Again, geek chic. These people are all available on Twitter, except for Shane. Did we put their... just going to keep pointing to that. But no, that does not make him less of a person. In fact, Edmonton Expo is on Twitter. So technically all of these people are on Twitter. So no disrespecting any of you in public. Okay, well, I think we have a topic of discussion. It's not the first time. Okay, so I'm going to make sure that the microphone is out here. And we're going to start the conversation. I have some basic questions here, but we're going to open this up to questions from you, the audience, you, the Twitter sphere who is online, and we'll let the discussion evolve. But no. Now that we're online, you can't have vodka. You can only have what you brought with you. Well, we've got lots of rum for you. It's just the vodka we're running out of. Okay, so remember, since we are on live stream, make sure you talk into a mic, or else all the people watching hear you watch you lip sync about vodka. Yes, so we dodged a bullet there. So, as I said, geek chic has become quite popular, and there is definitely a geek class and culture and community. But the group of people that come to events such as the Edmonton Expo and whatnot, I would say, and hopefully you'll agree, has been growing, not shrinking. So there have been new people getting involved. Would you say that social media is a big part of getting new people involved in the realm of the geek?
I have nothing positive to say about that, so you can start. Absolutely. I mean, the internet especially, but social media is certainly a part of the internet. We wouldn't have social media if it wasn't for that. But the internet has kind of made it, to put it in the forefront for everybody where they see that it's cool. For years, it was, us comic book geeks were getting thrown into lockers in high school, and, it just wasn't cool to read comic books. But now everyone's seeing how much fun people are having at conventions. The convention industry especially is exploding thanks to San Diego Comic-Con, New York Comic-Con, the Calgary Expo, which is in its 7th year this year. They had 60,000 people. They're now one of the largest shows in North America, let alone Canada. They're the second largest in Canada. The Toronto Expo had over 100,000 people, which is the second largest show in the world. So more and more people are plugged into these events and going, and because of that, social media plays a big part of that because people are tweeting to each other, they're Facebooking with, all their photos from these events, they're Instagramming all their photos from these events, and they're seeing how much fun everyone is having being a geek, and people want to be a part of that. Jay?
Yeah, I'd have to agree. I mean, a lot of the events here in town, a lot of the geek events here in town are started really on Twitter, on Facebook events. I want to say Google Plus events, but nobody's on Google Plus. So, but the social media is really is a touch point for a lot of events and getting people out to things like this and Capital Ideas and not just geek events, but yeah, it's big.
Another thing social media has for these sort of events is digital peer pressure. I know amongst a certain subset of my friends, when San Diego Comic-Con tickets came on sale, for like days up to it, it's like, oh my God, 8 o'clock in the morning, we gotta be ready. La 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 la. Tammy, don't you have your tickets yet? And there was so much coordination. Like, I'm pretty sure Twitter actually went down for like an hour when the San Diego Comic-Con tickets became available, because everybody was tweeting updates, and it was stupid updates like, page not loading, I filled out the form, didn't get all the way, you know, like it was insane. And there was this huge peer pressure for like a day and a half to get that ticket, and when I didn't, because I suck, I couldn't get a ticket, all of a sudden I was like, wait a minute, that was just peer pressure. I was caught up in the social media moment, and I had to go. And it's okay that I didn't get a ticket. It's really okay.
You just keep telling yourself that. I actually, when I got invited to this, I started really thinking about social media and how it's working within my business, my industry, and stuff like that. And I realized how, in a lot of ways, we call it social media, but it's actually very insular. And when we look at how a lot of the culture and events that have built up, the expos, the geek chic fandom and all that kind of stuff, I actually look at, I give more credit to television and film than I do social media. Social media is working within the people who are already in the know, but I don't find that it's reaching out to those people who aren't in the know or people who are in social media. And I see it through the events that are run, the events that we run through our business. It's good promotion for the people who are connected, but when I go, for my business, for example, when I want new people, I have to go out into the community, or I have to do a spot on television, or I have to get an article in the newspaper before I attract new customers. So I'm finding that the old media is actually kind of what's generating the new business. The social media is for people who are already in the know, and odds are they're already geek chic, as much as I hate that term, because I was geek chic long before people even thought of it. Yeah, I was. Damn it. Oh, I spilled my vodka too. All right, but no, I think there's certainly going to be a tip in the balance, and I mean that's going to shift, because the more people that find out what's going on, they eventually become connected. But there's a part of me that argues the fact that it's the social media that's connecting new people to what's going on. I think it's the old school media, because a lot of people are still old school. It's the younger generations that are coming up that are connected in. And social media is so vast. I mean, try to find a website, a Twitter, like try to find a Twitter name for the average person on Twitter. I find it's like people that I know when I look up other people that I'm familiar with and I try to find them. You don't get the search result you're looking for right away. You get 15 or 20 other people that may or may not be related. I mean, there's still a lot of kinks to be worked out in the system. But again, it's an evolutionary type of thing, and everything will kind of get better. But yeah, I'm going to be the wet blanket up here today, and everything. Everyone's going to go, social media is awesome, and I'm just kind of like, yeah, okay.
No, that's fair.
Yeah.
Jay is going to pounce, and he's going to...
I've even got an example that includes Jay in the example. I would put out that maybe you need to be putting out a little bit more connections or talking to people. Maybe you're not following the right people on Twitter. Maybe you know. Tried. Yeah. I'm just saying as Twitter goes, it's about creating relationships, and for businesses, I find if they're creating relationships with their customers, then it's an easier transition to get them to the stores. Example being, I connected to you through Twitter. That's one of the main reasons we met. Later on, you found out I was really excited to go see a movie here and a movie there, and how many times have I been to your store to come talk to you or to come talk about movies? Or so I would say that maybe. Creating more relationships via Twitter. It's how you use the tool, not how the tool works. Maybe.
Excellent. Hang on. No. Because you two could talk all day, and we can't allow that.
And
so
maybe we will.
I'm going to evolve the question. Also, FYI, if anyone out in the audience has a question, wave your hand visibly, because I'm like Evan's doing right and we will get to. But I have a question first. Yes. That this is sort of speaking to. When, for instance, for me, I didn't go to last year's con in Calgary, and I thought, well, it sounds interesting, and it might be neat, and I know some people who are going. And then thanks to Facebook and seeing all the pictures of all of my friends with all of these really cool people and hearing all of these stories in social media, I discovered what I had missed, and I know I am going to go to the next one. Does social media in this genre, and this applies to genres that are beyond just full frontal nerdity, this applies to any sort of business and any sort of relationship. I'd just like everyone to say their 2 cents about the speed of social media. You can talk to people really fast, but how long does it take to get traction? For instance, in my example, that traction is taking a year. I missed the event, but thanks to social media, I'm really interested in the next one. You connected with each other, but it wasn't for months until you started getting a real relationship. So let's talk about the speed of traction of social media.
I'm going to put out 2 examples. For me, like before there was an Edmonton Expo, there was an Edmonton Collectible Toy and Comic Show, which ran for a decade. Thank you. Because most people don't know what it is. And that was one thing that I struggled with. But one of the things that I found when I started it is that word of mouth was the most important way to push yourself and market yourself. And when I started that a decade ago, there was no Twitter. There was no Facebook. There was none of that stuff. So to be able to see how... What's that? Right. But to see how quickly you can use those tools to grow things, word of mouth now isn't, me. There's an event coming up. It's word of mouth is using social media. It's really social media's become the new term for word of mouth. And to see the power of different events and stuff like that, like now that the Edmonton Collectible Toy and Comic Show has been merged with Calgary into the Calgary Expo, within a month we have generated more social media followers since we announced the expo than I was able to generate in 10 years of doing the Edmonton Collectible Toy and Comic Show. So, I mean, the social media power that Calgary has already had in what they've built has allowed us to explode into Edmonton with their branding already. So, I mean, there's certainly really powerful tools that way.
But in fairness, it took Calgary 7 years to develop that following as well. So...
In 7 years, Calgary went from 3,000 people at their first show to 60,000 people, whereas we've been holding steady at about 4,000 people for the last 5 years.
But if you brought in the entire cast of Star Trek, you would have drawn 60,000 people too.
and I don't have that kind of money.
Yeah.
It's interesting you should mention missing an event. I found social media is my way to make sure I go to the next event. If I miss something, I immediately go to their website, check out if they have a Twitter tag or something like that, or if it's on Eventbrite or something, I'll add that to my let me know if this happens again sort of thing. Because in a year, I'm going to forget. I can't even remember what happened last week, let alone a year from now. So if I follow their Twitter, chances are as the event starts coming up, I'll start seeing alerts about it. And then, I mean, I'm not one of those, oh my God, I'm going to miss something on Twitter. It's like whenever I dip into the stream, if I happen to see something, wonderful, right? So if an event starts really pumping itself up, I'm going to need a week lead up to the event to make sure that I catch a tweet, right? But that's how social media has helped me with my geekery, attending geeky things, is follow the Twitter, I'll catch it next time. Really, just like you said.
The guy who does a podcast is reaching for the mic again.
Yeah, well, and one of the things that you're talking about, not missing events, you don't necessarily even have to be at the events to join in as well with social media. A lot of the Twitter and a lot of the fun things I like doing with Twitter is we've started live tweeting movies with J&J with the podcast. We just random nights we'll be like, hey, you know what? We're watching Top Gun tonight. Who wants to talk Top Gun? Because everybody's seen Top Gun, and it's just a simple way to create events that aren't huge, or if you can't make it to those huge events, to still be a part of it and say, hey, my buddy who's there, here's the hashtag, right, that you're using. Well, I can follow along with that hashtag and follow along with the Calgary Expo hashtag or the Edmonton Expo hashtag and see what's going on, even though I can't be there. So that's really cool, too.
Does your question still have relevance? Yes, you're raising your hand. I'm bringing the mic to you, though, and you know this is important, so that everybody in internet land can hear this question.
Hi, I'm Evan. I read comic books. Don't clap yet, because I read them all on here, and that's what my question's about.
Fine. You'll come around.
Yeah, well, I have a whole bunch. I have a whole bunch in paper too. But like all print industry kind of based things, have you noticed a difference? And like with people reading things more digitally and not coming into the shop, and if so, how do you pivot with that? Essentially.
I guess this is directed at me.
Well, yeah, but I mean, but it's interesting because cons are getting bigger and bigger.
Yep.
But people are reading less and less paper in theory.
Yep.
So we're told.
I equate the movement of digital media to the uprising of Walmart, and where every mom and pop shop cried that the sky is falling. They're going to get crushed under the foot of the Godzilla that's coming along and stomping. You know what? Since comics converted to digital, and we have a digital storefront on our website. You can order, you can get a lot of free comics through our website. You can get cheap comics through our website. From our end, we lost 2 customers that I know of. Both of them came back. And continually, almost at least once a week, I know of someone who comes in and says, yeah, I've been reading all this stuff online and I've been sampling it, and I want to own it. I need this copy. I want to share it. You can't share digital comics because they're all cloud-based. You don't actually. It's not like music where you actually get to download a song and theoretically you can share it with other people. So it's pretty good. We've actually gained more traction with digital, which is fine because it's like everything else. If you have a specific niche and you service the industry properly, you will survive and you will thrive, regardless of whatever antiquated product you are selling. There's always going to be a market for that. And what I usually tell a lot of people too is, yay for capitalism, because people like to own crap. And with print copies, you own stuff, and you get to put it on your shelf and have people come to your home and say, look at all the stuff I own. Don't I own a lot of stuff? It's awesome. It's fantastic. And I think a lot of that's going to keep me in business for a very long time. So I'm quite happy about that.
Further to that, I review comic books with sequentialtart.com, and I started doing that 12 years ago. And back then, if you were going to review a comic, you had to wait for the creator to mail the comic to the editor would mail it out to the reviewer, and then you would read it, and then you would type everything out and put it into our online system. So it usually took several weeks to get a comic to you, and your lead time for reviews were months. You had to make sure you had months before a comic came out. I stopped doing reviews for about 8 or 9 years, and I just got back into it again this year. Everything's digital. Image gave me an FTP password, so I can just log in and see what's coming out from Image in the next couple weeks, right? And review anything I want. I got access to hundreds of comics. I bought an iPad. I'm back on comics that way. And it's exactly what Jay was saying, except I don't buy floppies, generally speaking. Jay knows I buy one floppy. Marceline and the Scream Queens. Oh my God, such a good comic. But what I do is I'll read these individual floppy issues as a reviewer, and then I go in and I buy the big trade paperback or graphic novel. I mean, my Hellboy collection is several $100s, and it takes up one little square in my shelving unit. So yeah, I don't think digital comics are going to replace regular comics, and I do think, however, that the speed with which digital comics allows for review turnarounds is a good thing.
I'm going to just be really quick. I'm old school. I had a Marvel digital subscription for a year. I used it. I liked it, but I don't want to sit in bed with my laptop or an iPad. I want to sit in bed with a comic book. That's how I end my day every day. That's my half hour to relax to myself, is sitting in bed with a comic book. And I just, and I'm sure there's a lot of old school people like me too who are going to keep things going. So.
The other advantage to the Dead Tree comics, you can read them in the bathtub. I'm not going to do that with my iPad or my laptop. Thanks.
Okay, on the note of self-electrocution, there's a question in the back? We have a question in the back? Okay, good, because I didn't want to move on to my next question. I didn't know how to segue, so here's a better way.
Mine is a follow-up question to Evan's. Do you think that having social media, with Tammy, you said you were reviewing and stuff, so does that actually encourage more people to get into comics or more people to check out comics because it's another way to spread the word?
I would have to say that I'm a bit evangelical when it comes to really good comics, and then I push them on all my friends, and I'm like, oh my god, have you read this comic? You so have to. And then I go to Tumblr, and then I go to Tumblr and I look for GIFs, and then I retweet those GIFs, and I say, hey, have you seen this? You should totally watch it. So yes, social media, if I get a good product, social media is wonderful. I pump it out to everyone. If I get a bad comic, I'm sitting on a couple of bad reviews right now thinking how mean should I be? But they're really horrible comics. So, I mean, it can bite both ways in that regard. And also, when it comes to comics and shows and popular media, Tumblr is the place to go for it. I can't believe the richness of the media that you find on Tumblr or Twitter. It doesn't even hold a candle.
I'm just coming from it from more of a customer side, but I've actually been to more comic book stores now that comics have gone digital, just because guys like Jay and lots of the comic book stores here in town are realizing that they can talk to me via social media when I say, I have no idea what comic book I should read. I have no idea what's coming out this week. They'll be like, oh, by the way, here's what's coming out this week, and I think based on your tweets, I think you might like this, or based on what you've read past, you might like this. I've been to more stores and talked to more of the managers and stuff about, hey, what should I get into, and then come back and bought my giant volume when the whole volume is ready. So I would say because of social media, because of digital, I'm actually visiting stores more.
Whenever I read something really good too, I obviously don't have Twitter, but I put it on my Facebook, and I've got 1,200 friends on Facebook, and I post that I loved Elephant Men, for example, and then people are like, man, Elephant Men's great, and then we start this whole dialogue on my wall about like what's good to read and what's similar to it. So social media is certainly helping get new comics and new titles into people's hands, absolutely.
Yay! No, absolutely, and it takes me, less than a year ago, I could have cared less about anything social media. Just kind of started using Facebook because, hey, here's a good place to dump my photos, and that was pretty much about it. Now, on average, I probably spend at least 2 hours out of my day, obviously not concurrently, but I spend about 2 hours just pimping, and that's it. And thank God for TweetDeck, because that makes it so much easier. But it is an impact. So at any point in time where I can go out and say, here's this book that's coming out, new Grant Morrison this week. A book that I would normally carry 8 copies of the shelf because I know I'm going to tweet about it. I've got to put 50 copies on the shelf, and I sell 40 of them in a day. It's ridiculous the impact that it has. So, and I mean, we also do on a bigger extent, we do a weekly e-newsletter. That e-newsletter has an impact as well. It reaches over 1,000 people. The Twitter is over 1,000. The only thing that I ever really get thrown about when I start looking at all this stuff, I start thinking about numbers. And the numbers are where things really, even when I look at any kind of social media event, when I think about the numbers, in some ways it makes me feel like this isn't really an impact that it should be. When I look today, we have a lovely and healthy crowd here, which is fantastic, but how many people did we actually reach? And our potential customer base, Edmonton has 750,000 people. You've got 1 million people in the greater Edmonton area. I feel the same way when I do my social media stuff. It's like I have 600-700 direct customers in my store. We've only got 1,000 Twitter followers. Guaranteed at least 2/3 of that are spam bots and whatnot. It's like what I'm trying to learn myself is how do I get more legitimate, useful people connected to my social media? How do I market my social media and actually get those in? And that's still a bit of a hurdle that I'm trying to overcome. And more often than not, it's a bit of a work, it's a bit of a challenge. But when I look at the audience that's out there, getting out to them is something I'm still learning and adapting to.
Speaking for myself and several other people here I know who do social media, there are entire careers that are based on answering that question. Speaking of one of the people who does that, there is a question in the front row.
Actually, that's pretty much my question. So how are you measuring your metrics anyway? You say that you have all these followers, and people on your Facebook, but are you actually closing the loop by asking people when they come into your store how they found out about you? Like, are you doing anything that can actually make those pieces measurable?
Yeah,
other
absolutely.
than just like, oh yay, 1,000 people?
No, absolutely. No, it's, and I mean, obviously, like we have a lot of staff. We have 10 people that work out of our store. Some of them are part-timers. Part-timers only kind of take so much an investment into their job. I'm there, whenever I'm there, I'm a chatty Cathy, as you can already see. I like to talk, but I do actually converse with people. So anyone who I don't recognize in my store, because I'm there pretty well 7 days a week, on average 12 hours a day. If someone comes into my store and I don't recognize them, you know, they've probably never been in the store before. And I will converse with them. How did you find out about us? What brought you in? That kind of stuff. We do that sort of thing. We do know that we have events throughout the year that do draw a lot of people into our business. Free Comic Book Day every year. Like this past year, we clocked in about 1,500 people through the store in a single day. Again, a lot of them are people who are regulars, but because we get the social media, the old school media, and everything else, we do get a lot of extra bodies in there. So we do make an effort. Again, it is challenging to get all your metrics to find out every person who's in there, but we do make an effort to get that information and connect with it. A lot of people who reply to your tweets, who reply to your Facebook questions are the usual suspects, as it were. And so I do make an effort when I put out tweets, when the Facebook statuses, I try to put out stuff that would attract other people to speak who don't normally speak, so that I can get those reactions and see who's paying attention. Probably the greatest Twitter responses I ever got from a Twitter post that I did was one day I just tweeted because I was bored, and I said, I can't find my stapler. Has anyone seen my stapler? At which point I instantly got like 14 replies. Ask, is it a streamline? Was it red? Did you leave it in the base? Like, it's that kind of thing. But then you go and you tweet something relevant that you want people to respond to. Good luck, right? It's that time. So you try to go back and forth, get a little bit of both. Again, those metrics, you're trying to find out who's there. So it is like there is an honest effort. Obviously, I have other things to do, but yeah, we do try.
Excellent. I would love to hear from everybody else what their feedback is, but just one little comment on what you said. I think it's interesting that it's not necessarily a measurable metric, but it's a bit of a pulse testing. If 14 people reply automatically to the stapler question, that means you've got a lot of people listening, I think. And then when you're tweeting out the relevant stuff, even though they may not be responding to it, they're listening to your stream. So it's an interesting way to do a tacit test of your metrics. Anyway.
I know in my store, we've tried to follow up on those sorts of things with contests only through our Facebook or only through different things. So it's like, if you're looking at our Facebook, tell us that you saw this, and you can, you have to come down to the store to get it, and tell us that you saw it on our Facebook. It hasn't really worked that well. But
you have a different
client base. We have a totally different client base too, right? So we're a like I own Shades of Grey, for those of you who don't know, which is a tattoo, toy, comic book store and art gallery on White Ave.
And not a book.
And not a book. Not a book. Though we were hoping we were going to capitalize on that through social media and get a lot of single moms coming in, oh, what's this store? There's toys? Wrong toys, but still we were hoping we'd get some crossover from that. It didn't really happen.
Right.
But I have found, and it's not really through the, I can speak to the geek tattoo movement, because the geeky tattoo movement is something that I've been a part of for over a decade, and seeing how that's grown through social media has been crazy, and we've been able to utilize that to grow our business, the tattoo side of our business. So we can see that grow through our Facebook and things.
Brilliant.
I don't own a store. However, I do make indie comic books, and I know lots of people who make indie comic books, and we sell directly through our social media. And it's been such a boon. 12 years ago when I started making my own comic books, it was really difficult to get customers. It was, like I said, all word of mouth. I had to go to conventions in the States, get people to know who we were. We had to have a website, la, la, la. Now, all I have to do is say, I got 30 copies of a comic, and out of my, however many followers I have, or my live journal, or, yeah, I have a live journal, or my Tumblr, whatever. It was I could really target those specific niche people who would be interested in reading an indie comic where I have a gangster guy eating too much cheese, right? Like, it's very niche. I couldn't make it happen if I were to go through regular channels, but through social media, I can target those people and sell out in like a week.
Now, JS.
I as well don't really have a business. I mean, the podcast may become a business in the future, but social media is our lifeblood, and we have a very easy metric of we want subscribers, we want people to listen to the show, and we have very easy ways of measuring that. So like Google Analytics on the website, iTunes stats, FeedBurner stats, but social media is our lifeblood. We get a lot of guests via social media. That's where you can first hear about when the podcast is coming out. That's our lifeblood is social media. So,
Right. There's another question from the audience. People are interested. Great.
My question is sort of for Shane. Do you find that geeks can now sort of shape their nerdy experience by do you take feedback with the expo, and does that kind of shape who your guests are and that kind of stuff?
I'd like to give the polite answer and say that yes, geeks can totally do that, but there is no angrier and harder to please group of people than the internet nerd. And it is so frustrating.
First
and
to complain, the last to show up.
Yeah, it is so unbelievably frustrating to be on the social media end of things and listen to the most asinine, retarded comments coming out of people's mouths that because they don't have any clue about it. They don't know that it takes, hundreds of thousands of dollars to put on a show. They don't realize that there's other shows happening at the same time. They don't realize that there's, guests have other commitments. That we can't get your favorite star from Buffy just because you want it. So we do certainly listen because people there may be new ideas that come our way, but for the most part we try to cover our bases with somebody who's available from across all genres, and ultimately you're not going to be able to make everyone happy. But by trying to accommodate all levels of geek in our events, then we're going to try to make as many people as happy, knowing that no one's going to be happy online until they get to the show, and then they're going to be happy, and then they're going to go home, and they're going to not talk about how not happy they were, and they're going to, instead of talking about the positive experience that they had, they're just going to complain about the one bad thing that happened. So, I mean, I find from the organizer's point of view, that there's a lot of frustration that comes from the social media end of it, and you just try to ignore it as best as you can. But don't feed the trolls.
Don't feed the trolls.
Exactly. But you still do have to listen. So.
And I'll say as kind of like the go-between is the person who's frontlining for the geeks and then trying to support like Shane's organizations. For years and through the store, we constantly get people come in. It's like, it'd be awesome if Edmonton had something like the Calgary Expo. And I'm like, but we've had it, and it's been trying to grow, but it's not growing because you don't go, right? And it's like, everyone's like, well, they've only got 2 guests. And I'm like, guess what? That's what their budget can afford. But you know what? Go. Spend the $7, pass on a latte for a day, go to the show, support the show will grow. Those 2 guests become 4 guests. The Calgary Expo did the same thing, but they had different leverages that they could do. Shane's show was very grassroots. He worked very hard at what he had to do, and I had to listen to a lot of crap. And there were people. I actually lost a customer at one point in time because I basically just I told him he was an idiot, straight up, because he was just complaining about the show so much. And I'm like, you know what? If you want a show so badly, just start your own show. And it really gets frustrating. Like, those people can be so thoughtless and so inconsiderate, and that probably applies to like any group of people. But unfortunately, like, fanboys are so passionate, and they're at times so demanding, and it really gets frustrating. And I felt bad. Like, I mean, we supported Shane's show as much as we could over the years, and there were so many times I just felt so bad for the people, so bad for Shane, for the people that we had to deal with to make this thing happen. So.
The thing is, though, that a lot of the times it's the vocal minority that you're dealing with. You know, the one thing that I've been so happy with is that, you know, through the 10 years of running my show as I did, I walked away from the day every day seeing smiles on the faces of 4,000 people. And at the end of the day, I knew that I did my job right, and that there were people who had fun, that there were people who were happy, and you know, we're looking to grow that. It's unfortunately just the keyboard warriors who are the ones who sit there and have, you know, the least to say but the loudest to say about it. But that said, there are a lot of people who have legitimate ideas and things like that, and we do listen to that dialogue. There's absolutely a dialogue through that, for sure.
Another question at the back. Okay. Same guy. I think he had some investment in this room.
Changing the topic away from entitled fanboys. I would love to know what your guys' like. There's a lot of people in the audience, from what I'm seeing here and reading online, who have not really done the comic book thing. But this is potential here.
Boo earns. Boo.
And so I was wondering if each of you could put some recommendations out there for where a great place to start would be for them.
Happy Harbor.
Yeah. Well, aside from that.
Oh, it was kind of obvious.
I mean, since I got the mic in my hand, I'll start. But I mean, for me, I always find that start with what you liked as a kid. And if your heart is still kind of drawn to that sort of genre, like I'm still a diehard Marvel superhero kid. And I'm unabashed about it. But that said, I've been branching out into a lot more stuff that I should have been reading in the early 90s and stuff like that. So it's just a matter of, you know, even talking to your friends and find out what they think are must-read books and you know, based on them knowing you and things like that.
I'm going to move it back a little bit to social media and just say maybe expand your circles. Go look through Twitter and find, I don't know, like you said, things you're interested in. It doesn't, comics, because they're getting so big, there's movies, right? There's all the kinds of marketing out there for comics. So expand your circles via Facebook, via Twitter, via anything, and find out what you're interested in. Google's a wonderful tool, very wonderful tool.
I'm going to take a feminine perspective to this one.
Death blow.
Well, I'm actually not a superhero fan. Yeah, I'm not a superhero fan, but I do read comics avidly, so just to let you know, there's more than superheroes out there, and there's more than Western comics out there. When I started reading comic books, I started with Japanese, Korean, and Chinese comics that were translated into English. They're often a lot more appealing to women, just because they deal with things you might have seen in Archie, such as relationships and love triangles and, oh, the drama, oh, moe, you know, like that sort of stuff. And also even like what you were saying about what were you interested in as a child. Maybe you're interested in a specific genre. Like if you like paranormal stuff, check out Hellboy. If you like detective stuff and librarians, go check out Libris Rex. I mean, and you can also check out sequentialtart.com because we review all sorts of comics, and it's not all just superhero comics. And we also have really thoughtful essays. Not me, because I'm not really that thoughtful. I'm just a reviewer. But there's some really thoughtful essays that dig into some characters, some tropes, some different comic genres that you may find interesting. And I can't emphasize this enough. Get on Tumblr and follow every single person who seems to have interesting gift sets or a good sense of humor or are a creator. I follow on Twitter and Tumblr probably about 75 comics creators directly. And you get to see like their practice sketches. You get to see what sort of collaborations they're working on. Sometimes they do fan art of their own comics. If you're familiar with the comic Adventure Time, I highly recommend following Natazilla on Tumblr because she not only does fan art of Adventure Time, she's a storyboard artist on it, but she is a huge fan of the gender swap Adventure Time, where Princess Bubblegum becomes Prince Bubblegum, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And she posts fan art of it all the time, and it's a wonderful little sort of behind-the-scenes extra content look. You can get at stuff. So my advice, get on Tumblr and look for stuff possibly outside of the superhero genre.
Tammy, what was that website that you just mentioned that you work on?
Sequentialtart.com.
Sequentialtart.com. Notice that gratuitous plug there. And I'm just going to take a little segue here, speaking of gratuitous plugs. We do have some other organizations that have offered prizes for today, and we're going to do a contest for our prizes. We want to know your best geek cred experience. You shook hands with William Shatner. You got to sit in an X-wing with Anakin Skywalker. You met Jay before Jay was famous. Whatever. Tweet that, but with a slightly altered hashtag, SMBYEG whatever you've done, and then our guest judge, Dana DiTomaso, will see which are the top 3 geek cred experiences that you've had, and we have some gifts to give away for that. The prizes include, Marlis, what are the prizes?
She became a game show host all of a sudden.
We have coffee. We have from Credo. We have spa from Studio J Urban Spa, and we have a grand prize today. A grand prize for the first prize for the geekiest experience is a $25 gift certificate from Lit Wine Bar.
That'll get you half a glass of bourbon.
That'll get you almost one of their nicest scotches. Yes, so your best geek cred experience, SMBYEG and we will, Dana will rate them, and then we will give those prizes out at the end of the day. Do we have other questions from the floor? Because I have a question. Sorry? Prizes are open to the live cast too. So yes, you people at home can also tweet that. But then you have to come here in the next 5 minutes to pick it up. I'm kidding. Mostly. Some people have said, and I only say this because it's in my notes, but I've encountered a slight bit of this, that some of the genres of geekdom are rather siloed. Would you, at least that's what's in my notes, would you agree that they are or they aren't, that they have been or they haven't? Battlestar Galactica geeks don't like comic geeks. Comic geeks don't like Star Trek versus Star Wars, this sort of thing, various silos. Would you argue either yes or no that there are these silos in existence, and if social media has been breaking them down, or how we could break them down?
I think social media has taken the start, like I keep saying, it's kind of the touch point to breaking those silos down. Prime example, like absolute prime example. Back in May when Avengers came out, we at J&J, the podcast that I do, like I'm gonna plug now. I'm plugging.
You've got the mic.
Yeah. We talked to a bunch of the individual comic book shops and said, "Hey, Avengers is a pretty big movie for you guys, pretty big movie for us. What do you guys think of all coming onto the show?" We thought, oh, they're all gonna say no. We'll get one guest maybe. Like, we'll bring Jay on. He'll come for sure. And then we ended up getting 3 comic book stores, which has not really happened in Edmonton before. Yeah, exactly. So just from being on Twitter and saying, "Hey, you guys, are you interested in doing this?" They all went, "Yeah, why not? Like, let's do it." So it's starting that dialogue, starting that communication, and moving from there to break down those silos, in my opinion.
I've long been bi-fi. My sci-fi swings both ways. I'm well known for my involvement in the Star Wars world, but I love Star Trek and everything like that. But it's amazing the amount of people in the past. Like, I even had a guy one time who's like, "So, like, what happens if you meet a Star Trek fan?" I'm like, "I say hello." What? It's like when you meet anybody else. What do? You strike up a conversation. Hey, what's going on? But it's amazing that the people who think that those stereotypes exist, and they do, because I'm gonna get hit by Jay, but I hate DC. With a passion, and I know that Jay's really big on the DC, but that's also part of what makes the nerddom experience fun, because we have those passions that we are passionate about, and social media has allowed people to be able to talk about that even more. So yes, it breaks it down, but it also makes it more inclusive, because people can have like Twitter wars or like Facebook conversations and different things like that about what how this is better than the other or whatever. Sometimes people take it a little too far, because geeks are geeks, but I think it has kind of really opened it up for people to be like, okay, well, people are making a good valid point for this argument through social media. Maybe I should check it out and see what that's about. But I still won't do the New 52.
And sadly, I have to read Marvel as a job hazard. But yeah, there are clearly there are silos. I mean, it's speaking as the guy behind the counter. Oh my God, are there silos? Like, and when I go out, I do one of the things I do every Friday. I'm at a school typically, talking to kids about how comics are made, and I find that the majority of younger kids, especially all the boys won't admit that they read comics, even though they do, and the girls only admit to reading manga, and as soon as you go and you say, I'm here to talk about comics, and they go, oh, we don't read comics, we read manga. I'm like, okay, well, guess what? You're actually reading comics. It's so siloed a lot of times. But you take a civil approach. I think if social media has done anything, it is taking the social awkwardness away from a lot of the stereotypical nerds. It's allowed people to improve their ability to converse with other people who don't share. Shane and I could sit down and talk, about why Green Arrow is a better archer than Hawkeye, and we can do it fairly civilly for a while. But I mean, back in the day, like, fanboys are fanboys, and it would just be that all the negative stereotypes that you had, and I think those stereotypes have eroded. Everyone is still very passionate and can still be very siloed, but now we can be more civil about it. And of course, obviously, the uprising of conventions has again brought everyone together. When you put Green Arrow and Hawkeye in the same room, then all of a sudden it's like, hey, we both shoot arrows, it's all cool, right? And and you can move on from there.
I'm going to draw the focus out from comic books a little bit and point out an incredibly large silo, and then I'll point out a really small silo to show that silos are existing outside of the comic genre as well. The biggest silo right now for geeks is Twilight, right? Like, you either love it or you hate it, and the people who hate it are very, very vocal about hating it. And there's a lot of talk about how because it's something for girls, is that where a lot of the hatred comes from? I don't know, but it's an enormous silo that I've seen, and no amount of social media seems to help break that down. Like, once you've made up your mind about it, there's just no shifting, period. It's just that polarizing. And a smaller one, which I thought you might find interesting, is Sherlock Holmes. Of course, there's 3 silos with that right now. There is the old school Conan Doyle fan, there is the BBC Sherlock fan, and now there's a new show out called Elementary, which has a gender-swapped Watson. And exactly. That's exactly it. And it was kind of interesting watching that evolve over my Tumblr, because I'm a fan of the original stories. I'm also a fan of the BBC, and I haven't seen Elementary yet, so I'm undecided on it. But the vitriol that was tossed back and forth at even the idea of gender swapping, for those who don't know, gender swapping is where you reverse the gender of a character. So Watson is now a woman played by Lucy Liu. And I mean, yeah, Lucy Liu, what the heck? I'm going to watch that, right? But the arguments going back and forth were like, this completely destroys the homoerotic subtext between the characters that were, oh, absolutely. And then they're like, oh, but she can't be Watson because she's Asian, and she's also a girl, and she wasn't a combat doctor, and all these obstacles coming up, and then watching the fan wars. It was brilliant. I mean, there's a lot of enjoyment to be taken from not breaking down those silos. Just saying.
It's an interesting segue to the next question here, though. But you've discussed how. But wait, there's more. We are getting a lot of comic things, and I think.
Oh, silos in there. D&D, Dungeons and Dragons, great example. I had a gentleman come into the store yesterday, and he was looking for D&D books, and we're primarily a comic store. I don't carry a lot of gaming product, but recently they just Wizard of the Coast just re-released Advanced Dungeons and Dragons, which is technically 2nd edition. They released them in these new deluxe versions and matching covers and all this old school artwork. And this guy came in and he's like, no, only 3rd edition. And I'm like, really? Just within that realm of a D&D geek, a gaming geek, he's like, nope, can't do 2nd edition, only 3rd. 3rd is like, they fall in lines right like that. Board game geeks, I don't really see that quite so much. Like, people who play board games, honestly, I find they will try anything. They will just dip their toe into anything new. And I think it's because a lot of that probably has to do with frequency, that there's not as many games that kind of hit the market as often. It's a little bit easier to kind of polarize things in comics, in music, and even film to an extent, because there's so much of it that's constantly coming out week in and week out. Board game releases, pretty infrequent. Magic the Gathering, another kind of subgenre. I mean, most people who get into that, they don't do anything else purely for financial reasons, because they spend so much money on Magic cards all the time, they can't do other stuff. But I find that kids who grow up playing certain card games like Pokemon or Yu-Gi-Oh! Eventually kind of graduate to Magic, and Magic users eventually kind of graduate to other things as well. So there's... so everything does tend to kind of move along. They do tend to, and there's not as much hatred I found through those particular genres. But I would, like I said, I attribute probably more of it just to the massive product that gets released. So.
Like I love comic books, and I've been a comic collector for 20 years, but I'm a toy collector. Straight up, I'm into toys, and it's amazing the difference between the vintage collector mindset and the modern collector mindset. And I'm straight up vintage, and the vintage guys look at the modern collectors like they're all just shoppers. That's all they're all. They're mindless consumers going to Walmart and rebuilding a Walmart end cap full of Marvel toys or Star Wars toys or whatever in their house. It's like shooting fish in a barrel. There's no challenge to it, but they all look at the vintage guys as vintage snobs because they can't appreciate what they're into. And to be honest, I don't know if the social media aspect has actually done anything to help make that an easier, make it so breaking those barriers down. I think it's actually made it worse. Those are interesting tools too, because
Which tools? Sorry?
Kijiji and eBay.
Kijiji and eBay, just for those of you at home.
They're great ways for people to Kijiji is a great way to get a deal. eBay is a great way to find something that you're looking for. eBay has completely opened up the market. When, in 1997 was when vintage Star Wars collecting was at its absolute peak of prices and probably demand. And it was before eBay really took off. So, if you wanted to buy, say, a skiff, you had to wait till your local store got one, or you had to go through Toy Shop, and you'd be spending, $1,000 on a box one. With the proliferation of eBay, you're realizing how common things are. So now you can get one, if you spent $1,000 on one in 1997, you can get one for $200 now. So that, and eBay has really opened the market and kind of challenged people's investments and made a lot of things, even perceived rarity, a lot more accessible.
Would you say it's devalued it, or is it just kind of?
I think it's leveled the market as opposed to devalued it. It's just made it more accessible, because like that toy wasn't released in Canada. So if you wanted it, you had to go to the States in order to get it. But it's also led to a rise of people collecting really rare things, because for me, I'm not just happy with a toy anymore. Now I need the sculpt for that toy, or I need the original painting for the packaging for that toy. And that's where, networking, especially through, it's not really social media, but online networking really comes into play to meet the right people to put those items in your hands.
You talk about leveling the playing field, like leveling. Twitter is a great job at doing that. Like I said earlier, our podcast is kind of fueled on Twitter. It kind of runs off Twitter, and that's where we get a lot of our guests. For example, the episode that we're coming out with today, we got in touch via Twitter with the director and writer of Looper, Ryan Johnson, and just said, hey, any chance? So we're breaking down that silo of celebrity, I guess, versus consumer versus regular average tweeter, and he's going to be on our podcast. Today we're going to have a major motion picture director talking to an Edmonton podcast about their movie. So that's breaking down those kind of silos as well. So social media is great for that stuff.
On the topic of breaking down celebrity, as I said, I follow quite a few creators, and you can have perfectly normal conversations with these people, and same with actors, directors, all that sort of stuff. I would just like to humble brag for a moment here, but 7 of 9 retweeted one of my tweets and favorited it. So, I mean, that's... What? What's your name, like Jerry something?
Jerry Ryan.
Thank you, Jerry Ryan. Whatever. It was a crowning moment for me. But that made me really realize, like, social media is leveling the playing field entirely. You can get direct access to people that before you would just be like, 7 of 9. She's up on this pedestal. Well, mostly for fanboys. I mean, I don't know.
Unless you're a retailer. No one gives a shit about retailers.
Yeah, nobody cares about retailers.
Okay, on that note, I've got one more question. We're going to try and wrap things up here really quickly. And that's the question that I'm... 2 questions. Eeny, meeny, miny. Go. We'll see if we can get them both, if you can answer them quickly. Jay. No, I didn't say that.
It sounds like everybody is extremely involved in their community, and that's great. I'm just curious, how much time do you spend, and how do you tune in? Do you use a tool to sort of segregate the people that you tune into, like Hootsuite, so you don't have a home feed that's a lot of kind of nothing, or do you really tune in that much that you're engaging in that many people, and how much time does that take?
My Twitter feed, I used to have a cap of 50. And I would cycle through, and people would say, follow me, and I'd follow them. I gave everyone 2 weeks. If you said nothing of relevance within those 2 weeks, or if you were tweeting less than once a day and saying nothing of relevance, then I dropped you. Because there was no point in loading up my follow feed with things that just I couldn't connect with. Accidentally, I hit 69 followers. And I can't seem to really kind of break that number, because that's just the male caveman in me can't let that go. It's too funny. It's really, I just spend, I skim. My ex-wife used to make fun of me because I used to get all my news off the CNN ticker line, but I thought it was brilliant. I'm like, headline, I could get everything quick, and that's why I like Twitter. I can read it quick. And if I'm interested, I can follow through. If it doesn't catch my interest, I have a piece of information that would give me enough to start a dialogue with an individual. And I can hammer through a lot of stuff. So, yeah, I actually do tend to clog up and follow through and just read everything. How much time a day? As much as I need. I sell comic books. I don't have a real job, so it doesn't really take a lot of time. So.
I'm similar to Jay, but not quite the same. I have my feed of just like 350-esque people that I kind of rotate through. But I also really, really like to use, Twitter has this lists that they use, and I create lists like crazy, and I'll make lists for certain events and take them off and go find other people's lists and make lists inside of TweetDeck and stuff like that too, or follow. Hashtags are huge for me as well. I love making hashtags, and I love following hashtags. So SMBYEG, I put that up on my TweetDeck yesterday and started following along with the conversation beforehand. And I find, yeah, kind of separating out. You don't need to follow, in my opinion, you don't need to follow 5 million people to hear what everybody's saying. You can follow 10 people that you're really excited about, and then, yeah, set up those lists of, well, here's all the sports people, or here's all the Edmonton media people that I want to talk to, and you can go through and kind of, silo is a bad word, right? But you can set up those different genres, I guess, of things going on in town or out of town.
I don't have Twitter, again. So I don't follow anyone on Twitter. But I do, I mean, my businesses, all of my businesses are tied into this community. So I spend pretty much all of my day at some point working on either the convention, my store, upcoming books, various, other events that I've got going on. So I'm always connected somehow, just through various social media aspects.
I don't really do what either of these guys do. My social media is more than just Twitter. I'm also on Tumblr and Pinterest and LiveJournal. I'm still counting that. And I'm kind of everywhere for different things. And what I find is true of any social media that I use is the cream will rise to the top. If it's something important, if it's something people are really excited about, it'll be mentioned more than once. And quite often people will include me in an app because they think it's something I'll find interesting. I am, however, a senior web developer, so I'm on a computer about 16 hours a day. So, I'm always kind of just one eye on my Twitter feed, just seeing what's going on. Lists are incredibly useful, and just, I don't know, I follow interesting people who have interesting things to say. So anytime I want to dip into there, there'll be something interesting. And if I miss something, whatever, I missed something. It's not a big deal.
All right, last question of the day. Better make it good, no pressure.
Oh, Jerry.
Sorry, Jerry.
Jerry Ryan's here?
I wish.
So you guys are all talking about geeky things that you can buy and sell and like show off. Do you have any advice for making geeky things cool that you maybe aren't a product, like a social justice or environmental justice campaign? Like, how do you make that cool?
Simple, small question. See?
Well, obviously, I just attended the 3-speaker series last night at Grant MacEwan, where they had 3 designers talking about doing smart and interesting design. I would say that's your first stop. Make sure that your awareness campaign or whatever is smart and interesting. And when I say smart, I mean, give it a little twist, like the example they used were the Diamond Shreddies commercials. Remember when those came out? Dear God, that was awesome. It was so brilliant. And if you could get something like that makes it very retweetable or makes it so people are like, oh my God, have you seen, how many commercials have I seen from other countries because they've been that interesting, right? Like, what was the one? I think there was one in France where it was somebody having sex with an enormous scorpion. And it's like, shouldn't you use protection or something like that, but in French. And I was like, whoa, that's arresting and really got my attention. And I reblogged the heck out of that.
I think for the topics of social justice and things like that, you have to be really, really careful, especially with your social media version of it, is that you're not cramming it down people's throats. I've been involved in many different, other animal rights campaigns or other political campaigns. Like I was a part of the early Tibet movement stuff here in, 15 years ago. And that's the really important thing. You really have to make it engaging enough and interesting enough to get the information out there without hammering it. And unfortunately, with activism comes a lot of passion. And people get really passionate about it. And it's like, if you're not listening to me right now, you're not involved in this. So you really have to find that temperament of getting your point across, making it interesting, making people care, and therein lies a challenge. And again, like you said, careers are built on doing that. So I mean, I don't know if that's something that we can really answer right away, but just don't hammer it down people's throats is my...
Yeah, I can agree with that. And having something that's not I do a podcast. It's not really a tangible come down to our store and pick up a CD. Do people buy CDs? But I found especially with Twitter, especially with even Tumblr a little bit, is it's creating that relationship. So when anybody ever tweets anything about, hey, I really like that J&J episode, or did you guys hear about the YEG geeks that were on the Avengers podcast? I really try hard to within 4 or 5 hours to make sure that I've said, like, thank you very much. Like, thank you for talking about us. Or start up a dialogue where, well, what did you think about the Avengers? Or did you think Jay was full of crap when he was on the episode? Like, because I like making fun of Jay. But yeah, that relationship and building those relationships, it can be harder with bigger campaigns, because I have worked on bigger campaigns before, but people will react better to positive and reinforced relationships.
I deal with artists mostly, so you want to talk about people who are tough to get motivated and actually speak out. Yeah, they don't. It's it's really challenging. So most of I have no successful or useful information to provide for you for that. I literally, no, I don't. I've tried a bunch of different things, a bunch of different ways. I've tried hooks, I've tried incentives, I've tried things. I just think that the demographic that I function within doesn't allow for a lot of success with that sort of thing that I've learned. And I'll qualify that with just from what I've learned. But I keep trying, and that's all I do. Something doesn't work, I don't try it again.
Just quick, having put together several comic book anthologies and working with artists, which is like herding cats, the most effective thing I found is guilt. If you can guilt them, they'll produce.
So social media, it's all about motivation, genuineness, and guilt. Okay, we got 2 more questions. Comments are good. Comments, great examples. This we can do. Okay, you first.
Talking about not-for-profits and doing something interesting, nohomophobes.com, which was done by Calder. And they did such a great job, and I know that they had a teeny tiny little budget for it, and I honestly think it's brilliant, and I'm really jealous that I didn't do it. So it's, that's an example of taking something that is, terrible, and instead of saying, you shouldn't be saying these words, and taking it and pointing it out, and naming and shaming, which is a pretty common buzzword, but I mean, that's what they're doing, and I think it's brilliant.
Okay, I don't mean to do a self-promotion as well, but just to tie in with what Dana was saying, Tara and I run a website called I Dig Your Girlfriend, and for us, our kind of local activism for equality is our lesbros. So it's more of an ally, like we don't want to be like, equality, equality, fight homophobia. We're like, hey, yo, you like equality, you support us? You want to be a lesbro? I don't care like what your gender is, if you're a boy or girl or anyone who identifies, you know what, you guys know what I mean, like, positive, it's fun. It actually came organically from our lesbro, James Leask, who we wish was here today as well, because he's like your people, and so yeah, just tying into the no homophobes. no, I mean like.
I'm glad that your people like our people. Yeah, thank you very much. Okay, one more. It's been a pleasure to entertain your people for today. We'll be performing later this week at the Hard Rock Cafe.
Okay, I just wanted to say, make it, the word remarkable, make it remarkable. Sorry, what your name on the left? Tammy. As Tammy was saying, just like, make it out of left field, something surprising, whether that's humor or cheekiness or whatever. It's got to kind of stand out first and foremost, but then also just like focus on the, I think people want to know about the people that are helping, not so much the campaign, and I guess the goal is to have people see past the logistics and the system of it to see who's this helping and how can they get passionate about that. So I mean my two things. The word remarkable, let that sink in.
And it's really
Brilliant.
good if you can make it so that people want to share it on their social media and want to keep retweeting it.
Easy to do, yes. That's why there's marketing people. Who are they? Okay, excellent. We are going to announce the prizes. We are going to give a huge round of applause to our panel. And then for those of you who don't have to rush screaming off, we're going to do the introduction round, which is where you get to say who you are and introduce yourself to everybody in the room and everybody in the world. But first, we need the prizes.